Hello everybody, my name is Joshua and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Coffee, Cats, and King, where we will discuss books both new and old. I will share with you pictures of my cats, will make you wish they were your cats, and I will drink enough coffee for me and everybody watching. So if you saw my last video, I was not kidding when I said I will drink enough coffee for everybody here. This thing holds about 3/4 of a full pot of coffee. So I'm all hyped up and ready to go. Just finished with the previous video, jumping right into this one because I'm trying to do a little catch up. My wife and I just came back from that vacation. It was fantastic. Thank you for asking. Today I thought I would do a tag. Haven't done one in a while, and I have kind of a backlog of tags to do, and two, because I very much enjoy them. So today I want to start with the Astounding Science Fiction Tag. I saw Vaughan over at Plagued by Visions do this quite a while ago. He did a fantastic job, as always. And then I saw Michael K. Vaughan do it, and of course he knows more about the genre than I ever will, but again, it's just between the two of them, I really wanted to do this one. I showcase a lot of horror on here, of course, but I really do have a love of science fiction as well, in case you couldn't tell from my shirt. And so I thought this would be a great one to kind of share with you guys some of the inspirations that I've had in regards to science fiction. So this is a quick one if I ever actually got to the questions. It's just 8 quick questions. I am going to read off of this paper because, as always, I have a horrible memory. So let's get into it. Question 1. What was the first science fiction book you read and what did you think of it? I'm actually cheating here a little bit because the very first science fiction book that I can remember reading takes its place on another question on this list, and I don't want to double dip, if you will. So it's between two others, and this is a tough question anyway because, I mean, how many years ago was it that I read my first science fiction novel, you know? But in this case, I picked the first novel that I read and the first short story collection that I read because I can't remember which actually came first. So the first novel was Isaac Asimov's Foundation. And I'll put a picture up over here, of course, because I don't have a physical copy anymore. I had all of the books. I sold them when we made our big move, so I need to eventually get them again. But Foundation is a fantastic novel. Quite often ends up on, you know, your best of and greatest science fiction novels of all time, yada yada. But it was definitely one of the very first science fiction novels I ever picked up. It's partly because of that other collection we'll see later, but also because it was short. I'd heard great things, and it was just me kind of dipping my toes in without realizing actually that I was about to read one of the best science fiction novels of all time. So just to give you a very, very quick idea, this is about a particular man who is the father of a new science referred to as psychohistory. And essentially what he does is he has created, over the course of many years, him and other people have created these insane mathematical equations that allow them to essentially to predict with a very high level of accuracy what is going to happen in the future. And we're not just talking about a day or two, we're talking about potentially thousands of years into the future. And they can very accurately predict what will happen based on the decisions that leaders of our world, of our planets, make now. So this is part of a much longer series. The whole series is just absolutely amazing. If you really want to see what science fiction can do, what science fiction is all about, pick up Foundation. It's not an easy read. It is rather technical at times, but it is so well worth it, guys. And as far as that collection that I talked about, the first collection that I picked up was Over the River and Through the Woods by Clifford Simak. And first of all, it has a great cover to begin with. It's a little harder to find now. It's another short one. I first picked this up at my local library when I was a kid. But somewhere on the little blurb, it talks about Clifford Simak's writing being very reminiscent of Ray Bradbury. And at that point, I already had a love of Ray through his, well, more through his short stories, not through his science fiction, actually. I had not read anything science fiction from him at that point, but I picked this up because of that, and it's still a beautiful collection if you can get your hands on it. Clifford Simak, he wrote in a way that was very very hometown almost. He took just the most regular people, such as a lowly old farmer with, you know, a third grade education, and made him the one who ended up first contact with aliens, you know. And so he really brings the more emotional side and the more human side to science fiction, instead of the hard science fiction that you'll find in most of Isaac Asimov's work. So I think it was really excellent that I was able to pick up Foundation followed by this, or whichever way it wound up, because I really got to see two major sides of science fiction that drew me in: the science part and just the speculation and the incredible ideas that can come of it, as well as just the emotional storytelling side of it. So still an excellent collection if you can find it, guys. All right, same question, except what was the last science fiction book you read and what did you think of it? So the last one I read, I just finished it on that vacation. That was Joan Divinge with The Snow Queen. And this got 4.5 stars from me. Excellent book. I don't suggest reading it in the way that I did, which I basically read it in 3 sittings. And it's about 500 pages. I think that I probably lost some of the enjoyment reading it so quickly. But like I said, it was about 4.5 stars for me. It was an excellent read. There were a couple characters that I really didn't care for, and a couple of the ideas that I felt maybe fell a little flat. The ending was it's not what I hoped for, but overall the writing is very beautiful. Joan Divinge, she had a rough go of it in life. Well, still does. She's still around, but she's actually fairly recently published the follow-up to this book, and so I may pick it up in the future. Pretty amazing that she wrote the follow-up some 40 years later, but good book if you're willing to invest the time, because I think when I finished it, the first thing I told Paige was it was great, but it was draining. It was very draining, and that's both a good and a bad thing. So number 3, what made you love science fiction? Well, you're looking at one of those inspirations now, Twilight Zone. In addition to that, Outer Limits. I loved both from a very early age, and Isaac Asimov really brought me into the fold with that novel and with the collection that you'll see later on. It started with Twilight Zone and started with Outer Limits. I was watching science fiction before I read science fiction. So I guess really, truly, the one person that made me love science fiction was Rod Serling, above all else. And I think that's the case for so many people. there's no reason for me to try and explain that, what that man did, and what he still does, because he's still influencing so many writers, so many people now. It just, yeah, he's one of those guys. His influence is always going to be felt, and for me, more than anything, it was Rod Serling that gave me my initial love of science fiction, that made me want to try reading science fiction. So there you go. Thank you, Rod. Number 4 is favorite science fiction movie. I had a little trouble with this one because I'm not sure if my pick is sometimes considered science fiction and sometimes not considered science fiction. So I kind of have a backup for you folks. And I will say that when I read this question, it was not nearly as easy to answer as I thought it was going to be necessarily. It made me realize I kind of want to do a movie video about my favorite science fiction movies. So if that's something you guys might be interested in, let me know. If not, well, I might do it anyway, but I'm not sure. The number 1 movie that came to mind, though, for me, the movie that I can watch 100 times, I probably have watched 100 times, and can watch it 100 more. Again, some people consider it science fiction, some don't. That would be The Truman Show. And I feel like this is a movie that needs no introduction. If you've not watched The Truman Show, watch The Truman Show. I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm just going to say go watch it. For those that do not consider The Truman Show science fiction, I'd say that in a very close second, but in a much different realm, my favorite science fiction is probably Fire in the Sky, which is actually about an alien abduction more than anything. And this absolutely works as a horror as well. Some of the imagery in that movie is enough to give you nightmares. Number 5, what is your favorite science fiction TV show? There you go. Enough said. Number 6, what science fiction book do you feel should be read more often? Okay, again, I've picked 3 here for a variety of reasons. So the first I'm going to talk about is one that I have mentioned before. This is Tony Bertowski with Claus, Legend of the Fat Man. And I know you're probably thinking, well, Josh, how is that possibly science fiction? Well, this is science fiction actually, so don't judge a book by its cover. Tony Bertowski has actually written a full series, kind of based around this, and he's taken the old Santa Claus legend, pieces of Santa Claus legend from around the world actually, and turned them into this new series. But the whole mythos of Santa Claus, it's based in science, it's based in science fiction, and it's just such a unique take on the whole thing. How he explains how the reindeer fly, how he explains how Santa gets around the way he does. It's all just very unique, very interesting. I'm a huge fan of these books, and he just keeps bringing them out. I think he's on like book 10 now, where he's just going down the line. You know, here's a book about Santa, here's one about the Heat Miser, here's one about Ebenezer Scrooge, here's one about Rudolph, etc., etc. But again, all based in science fiction, and all just immensely original, immensely enjoyable. Now, another author I'd like to mention here for his series is Robert Croas with Starship Grifters. And I have my copy loaned out to a friend to read right now, so I don't have it with me. But I do have all of his books as well, so I'll post it here. Now, I have mentioned a couple times in the past that humorous fiction generally just doesn't work for me, especially in science fiction. And so Starship Grifters earns its spot here for me because it is fully immersed in humor. It is just as much comedy as it is science fiction, and it takes all of the old tropes, takes everything that we know and love about science fiction, laughs in its face and makes us laugh with him. So Starship Grifters is the first in the series. This one goes on for a few more books as well. And again, just so enjoyable. Very, very funny stuff. This is more of a science fiction meets mystery noir as the series goes on. Well beloved by me, but not read enough by other people. And then the last book that I want to talk about is Anna Hoffman's The Outside, which again I will post here because I have loaned it to a friend. And instead of trying to explain to you what this book is about, I'm going to read the synopsis because I feel like it gives everything you might need to know. And I feel like that, more than anything, is going to motivate you guys to pick up this book. So, here we go. Autistic scientist Yassira Sheehan has developed a radical new energy drive that could change the future of humanity. But when she activates it, reality warps, destroying the space station and everyone aboard. The AI gods who rule the galaxy declare her work heretical, and Yassira is abducted by their agents. Instead of simply executing her, they offer mercy, if she'll help them hunt down a bigger target, her own mysterious vanished mentor. With her homeworld's fate in the balance, Yassira must choose who to trust, the gods and their ruthless post-human angels, or the rebel scientist whose unorthodox mathematics could turn her whole world inside out. So you may or may not have gleaned from that the AI gods are in fact a science fiction version of the old ones from the Lovecraft mythos. So yes, this is hard science fiction meets Cthulhu mythos, and they mesh in such an awesome way. This is time warps and bending of reality. This is just a crazy, zany, incredible ride. Difficult concepts to grasp sometimes, but so well worth it. Awesome cover. Representation for those with mental disabilities, and awesome meshing of science fiction with one of my favorite horror canons of all time. So please pick yourself up a copy. All right, last two here. Number 7, what is your favorite science fiction short story? Again, this one was tough. I decided to go with Let Me Live in a House by Chad Oliver. And you can either pick that up in one of his short story collections, or if you want to be obnoxious like me, you can find it in this, the big book of science fiction, which is about 1,200 pages, and it is tiny font, and it is double margins. So this is a book that I read through, I think, last year, and I started it in January and finished it in December because it is that massive. But within its pages, you can find Chad Oliver's Let Me Live in a House. And this is, again, it's a great story, and then it is very atmospheric, very horrific and creepy, and just an all-around awesome alien contact story. This is about two couples that live on another planet. They are alone there. It is just them, and they've basically been set up in these biodomes that help them pretend that they are still on Earth and that everything is normal. And they've been there so long that they kind of start believing it. Well, then one day when they're having dinner together, there's a knock at the door. And that's an issue because they are out in space where nothing else is, where no one else is, where nothing can survive. The four of them are already in the house, and now there is a fifth person outside the door, standing there waiting for them to open it. It's a strange mix of humor and creepiness and just outright horror that propels this short story forward. And I'm not going to say anything else. Find some way of reading it. It is man, it just gets under your skin, you know, the whole concept, the whole idea gets under your skin. And I guess it kind of borrows from Frederick Brown's story Knock, which takes the old concept of, you know, basically there was one man left on Earth, and he heard a knock at the door. That's kind of the realm of this, but what Chad Oliver does with it is just, like I said, it's horrific and really gets under your skin, and I love it. Okay, and now question 8 is, what is your favorite science fiction book? Now, this, in truth, is the first science fiction that I remember reading, period, but it is also my absolute favorite. And this is a collection of short stories edited by Isaac Asimov, the greatest science fiction author of all time. Don't try and disagree with me on that. I will debate you, I will fight you, I will win. So, greatest science fiction author of all time. And he edited this collection here, this beautiful collection, Machines That Think. The best science fiction stories about robots and computers. This was the very first thing that I ever picked up. I picked it up in my elementary school library because I was a very avid reader. I read through everything, and I had a very special bond with the librarian there. And she knew that I needed books that were more challenging than what that library offered. So she actually brought me this book, and I fell in love from there. I fell in love with science fiction about robots and about AI. So of course, I immediately started consuming everything that Isaac Asimov wrote because, hey, it's the man that wrote the laws of robotics, you know? But this collection, man, this collection changed me, because before then, I really only read horror. And this is the collection that brought me into the fold. At that time, I had already started watching The Twilight Zone, and this collection made me realize how great science fiction writing could be. And this is such a difficult book to get a hold of now. My copy is in terrible shape. It actually came from a library, and it's falling apart. I have to be very careful with it because I haven't been able to find a good copy. If anyone ever finds one, pick it up for you or for me. I will pay you. I'm very poor, but I will pay you because I want to have a really great copy of this. For now, this is a reading copy. I just have to be very careful with it because it's falling apart. But it is, as the title suggests, it's stories about robots and computers and AI, and I love every story in this collection. This is my absolute favorite, period. It is not beaten out by any other collections. It is not beaten out by any novels. This, for me, is the holy grail when it comes to science fiction. There you go, guys. That was the Astounding Science Fiction Tag. I managed to make it a lot longer than it should have been, but again, I enjoy these tags. I can't help it. I have another one that I'm probably going to try and film today, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But for now, that's it. I have spent enough time chatting. I need some water. I think my voice is starting to go a little. So thank you. Stay safe. If you are interested in answering these questions, please do so. Either send me or tell me that you filmed it, or just answer them down below. I'd love to chat. And that'll do it, guys. Thank you. Drink great coffee. Cheers.